Now, Andy, you were talking about working and doing a bit of farm work. But
well, I started off, I done a bit of farm work. When Ned and Jim, the other brothers, were at the building, and we were saying that there was enough of them at the building, so I said I'd go to be a gardener. And I went over to Halder's estate. I was in Halder's. They had a great lot of men working at that time. Sure was a big crowd of lads working. But I got into the garden anyway. And I worked in Halder's garden. And there was a fellow, Doherty was his name. He was the head man in it. And I worked at that for a long time. And I got a job in Dublin, and I was going to go to the garden, and I met this fella. I was going to get a reference from the started to go to this job. Oh, he changed my mind when he convinced me that gardening wasn't a good future in it. So he turned me off. So I turned away from the gardening. Oh, I spent a year and a half in Halder's. I think the year was around 1943, and I done a man's work. My wages at that time was 24 shillings a week. By 24 shillings a week, and some of the best paid men in at that time were earning 30 shillings a week. They were grown men, like, you know.
That was reasonably good money then, wasn't it?
I done all right, you know. I was done all right, but looking back on now, it seemed very small, but it was all right that time. And I worked there for a long time, and I liked gardening. I love gardening. I used to till the ground here myself and all that, sow vegetables and all. But then I left it and I went at the building.
But when you said you got 24 shillings a week, did all of that go into your pocket?
No. Came home, gave my father, mother had died,
Yeah.
and I gave my father £1, and I kept the 4 shillings.
So you had 4 shillings for yourself?
4 shillings. And before the weekend was out, I'd be looking for the lend. A loan.
What were you spending your money on?
Well, you see, the thing was, we used to go into the hall. There was a club down there, the social club in the hall, St. Aidan's Hall. And I'd go in there, you see, and we'd play snooker and billiards and play 30 and play cards of all description. We used to play badminton and different games. The money went, that's how the money was spent. I'd get paid on a Friday evening. I'd be going back on Monday morning with nothing in my pocket. I used to smoke that. We used to smoke, and it was gas, you know. Because it was only a matter of having money to get the smoke. No one never said that cigarettes was bad for you. It was a matter of having the money to buy them. You know?
What age did you start smoking?
Oh, I started smoking, I'd say about 15 or 16 years of age. I gave them up then, moved a good many years off them now.
And were you drinking then?
I started drinking then shortly after that too, yeah. Started drinking about 16 years of age. Drinking, that time, bottles of Guinness, you know. But I never went too bad, and I never got that fond of drink.
Yeah.
You know?
But at 16, could you go into a pub and order a bottle
of
Guinness?
Oh yeah, go in with all the boys, and the crack would be good, you know.
There'd be no question over your age?
Oh no. As long as you had the money, you were all right.
So, and you mentioned about the gardening on the estate. There was a principal gardener. So, how many people were working in?
There was 3 other fellas in the garden besides me. Oh, there was a big crowd coming down the hall. There's that. There was like crowds come from mass or come from a concert or something. There was big crowds used to come down Chapel Road that time. Sure, I suppose that time there was no such thing as stamping cards. Or all the lads worked in halls. Just got a wage and 30 shillings a week. At the end of the day, that was that then. So there was a big crowd of lads worked in it. But all that changed too, of course.
And there was the big house. Did that have servants in it?
Oh, a big house. There was a fellow worked in it in my time now, Paddy Murphy. And he told me in the 1920s, when Halder's went as an estate like Halder's and all their families, Bobby and Charlie and Daphne and all them were youngsters. Between maids and parlour maids and cooks, he said there was 28 or 26 women working in the house alone. In the house, the Halder's house. 26 between women in the house. when he went into it. I think I'd say, I think it was 1928 or 28. He went to 1929, 30. Along that time, that period, he said there was 26 women working in the house. And that'll just tell you. Then they had the stables in it, and they had a lot of lads working in the stables, and then that before my time in the garden, there was 8 or 9 lads working in the garden alone. Oh, it was a fairly big estate, nice. They were good people too. They were good employers at that time, because it wasn't like now. I always remember coming out of Haller's yard, the farm yard. You could walk on the road, and there was a house right opposite the other side of the road. They called it the steward's house, and the steward's house, they used to open the window of a Friday evening, and you were paid out through the window. They handed out your money, whatever you were here. So that was all. That was the way they were paid. There was no rigmarole that time like now. There was no such thing as stamping cards or
unions.
Like that.
And did you ever get to meet the gentry, as it were? Did you ever have any dealings with
The
them?
funny thing about it was, Claudine Norton now, she was only a child and I working in. She's owns it over there now. I have to say, I got on very well with her. Grand woman. Got on very well with Claudie. Well, she's running the place over there now. Claudine Norton. She married a man. He was an architect, Jim Norton. He was a Scotsman. He lived from Edinburgh in Scotland. But he was a remarkable man. He was a real nice fella. He'd come down with the boys in the night time, have a drink and all. But I knew Claudie's father was Bobby Hall there. We got on well with him. We still done a lot of work when I started at the building. Then I got the job repaired and going around repairing roofs and all like that from him. And they were good people. Didn't say a word to them.
So you went into the building then after that?
I went into the building then. My father wanted me to go into the building. I went into the building then and spent a while with him. We had to do a little bit of everything. That was the problem. We had to do a bit of plastering, a bit of stone mason and blocks and done every kind of thing. Done plumbing. I ended up doing plumbing. Doing heating, central heating. I got into it with a fella by the name of Tony Power. He was a heating consultant, and he showed me how to do heat houses and all. So with gun barrel pipe. So I done that then. I had to go at everything,
There's a photograph of you on the wall there with a bunch of workers. Now you're the ganger on that job.
I was, yeah.
Now first of all, tell me what a ganger is.
Well, I looked at my father took on the job. He took on the job. The fact of building a chimney there 50 feet, that went 50 feet high up. Weren't we awful chances of tying poles together, putting planks on them and getting up. We went up 50 feet. I'd had to go up real high for get a draft on it. Now where we were standing there, that place we were standing, we built a boiler house down there. That's where the boilers went. Two big Clyde boilers went in there then after, where we were standing. So that was produced the heating for the convent. And that was in the time Wexford were hurling. That's how I wouldn't be good at remembering all dates and that well, but I remember it was during the time, the 56, when Wexford was winning the hurling. That's how I'd say that's the year it was. Sure, that's not the day I used to know either.
So you were building a 50-foot high chimney on the side of a convent.
That's right.
And which convent was that?
FCJ convent.
FCJ, right.
Yeah. There was FCJ convent, yeah.
Don't see anybody wearing safety helmets or anything.
Oh, nothing like that, no.
And was it dangerous work?
Oh, sure, was treacherous. Look at the wooden ladders. It was all on wooden poles. We got over the wood and tied them together.
So no proper scaffolding, nothing like
that?
that?
Oh, no, there was no such thing as... We had no such thing as Chobler scaffolding. Oh, we didn't know anything about that. And that's only... That 50... Now, I'm just telling you that was the time. Because how I remember that Jimmy McCormick, that lad standing there. Jimmy McCormick was his name. He's a fitter. He was from Dublin. And he came with us to the matches. And that's how I know that was at that time. He put in the heating in the convent. He done the heating, done the welding the gun barrel pipes and all that. That fella he had. And all the fella took the photograph. he was his helper. So they done that, and we built the church. There's two brothers of mine there dead since, and a first cousin. Yeah, first cousin, that's right. And just tell you now, you know, yeah, of course, it'll be to look back on that. You will seem a long time to you. You'll be a lot younger than me to look back at 56. It'd be a long time, but it's only the other day to me, like, you know. But we had great times. We enjoyed it. Worked hard, hard work, because we had to pull everything up with a rope. There was a fellow there, Paddy Byrne. He's on that day. He pulled up the stuff up to the very top of the thing. I done the building. I laid the blocks. My brothers and I, we all helped. Brothers, two brothers, Aidan and Willie. Aidan was only 57 when he died. So we had to start out. I'd say that was to give me a start. Like, went out then and done bits of jobs. I used to have this fella I'm telling you about, Mahon, and I'm very fond of Mahon. He was a character, and went around a lot, different places doing jobs. Farmers, mostly farmers, you know.
And at what stage then did you go to England in all of this?
I went to England. I was a fella I knew, a school teacher, John Kenny. He was a school teacher. He lived in Irish. He taught in Ballarubbock and he taught in Clahama. And he asked me, I was at let's see, I think that'd be 57, I think, 57 or 8, that time, that year. I went to England. He asked me would I like to go. The idea I had that time was to go to England and get into something different than the building. I didn't like the building. You know, there was a lot of hard work attached to it. But we tried everything, tried the buses and tried everything. We didn't succeed anyway. So we're back, and I done plaster. We did the plaster and gone very well at. Got in with a firm in London, a plastering firm by the name of Day. I got it off of the paper. Day Plasterboard and Natton Company. And I got a right job with him, good job. And Kenny, he was a school teacher and he was my mate, like, you know, they call it mate.
But he was just going over to work for the summer holidays?
Yeah, just for the holiday break, yeah. So I stayed about 4 months in it, you know. And the fellow, the overseer, the lad, the boss wanted me to stay, craved me to stay, gone very well at. And I didn't stay because I had ties it on. The two brothers were anxious for me to come back to the... I have a letter, a strange thing, I have a letter one of them wrote to me. We were very close, you know. He wrote a letter and he told me that he missed me, and the sooner I come back the better, that he wanted someone to get going with, like, you know, so... I was sad in a way, but I did come back then. I didn't stay too long, and I could have stopped. I often said that, you know, if I went over especially to get a job, I wouldn't got as good a job. And I stayed there with this Days Plasterboard and Natton Company. They were a firm and they picked 7 or 8 plasters to go around doing plastering jobs, you know.
And when you talk about the work that's there, what time was your start in the day and what time did you finish at?
You'd be out in the morning very early, or you'd be starting nearly 7:30 or around 7 o'clock, and you'd be out. You have to get out early. You finished about 4 or 5. And we used to travel a lot by train, went up to different parts. Went through Camden Town, went Finsbury Park, and we worked out at that airport. Out there for a while. We used to go travel. We lived in Napier Road, a place called Napier Road. That'd be out of East London, you know. So we used to go by bus and train and all to work.
Well, you were a young man. Did you like London?
I thought it was a lovely city. I thought there were nice people in it. I liked it. And the way things happened, it was kind of snookered in a way. Maybe a little bit of coax and I would have stopped in it, but then I didn't like to do it on account of the brothers, like I said I'd come home, you know.
Some people say they came across anti-Irish sentiments then, because so many Irish people were working in London. Did you come across any of that?
No, only I worked. We worked on one building, one place. Now we went to so many different places, but what we were doing in this place, I remember, I worked at a Cockney. He was a Cockney, and we called him, and we were levelling off on top of a big flat roof. It was place a lot of offices, building office blocks and all like that, and we're leveling off for asphalt. It was to be asphalted over. But this fellow was a Cockney, all right, and we used to be joking, good character, you know. But he used to always say, you know, as you often heard Camden Town, as I mentioned, there's a hell of a Irish in that. We used to go through it in the morning real early to go into work and see lads' legs sticking out of the car door, sleeping in cars and all that time. But this fellow, there were so many Irish in it, I used to say, if you give us back Camden Town, we'll give you back the North. But I had good character, you know. But that was the way it was. Camden Town, it was real Irish that time. We went through it. We used to have to walk part of it to get this Finsbury Park. Because we were doing up a place for students, for school. Fellas were in college. They got this house, and we had the job of doing the plastering inside. Well, great experiences already, you know.
Was it only yourself and you did?
Except for John Kenny, that's all.
Just two of you went over?
Just the two of us.
Would many other people from Bunclody go looking for work in London?
The funniest laugh I was just talking about the other day there, we were up on a real high building, laying, doing a top of a roof, laying 11.5 for asphalt. And I looked down that was real high, and looked down on the street, and I saw this fella walk with a telephone crowd, were doing something on the side of the street. And I said to him, that fella's really like a fella I know, Louis Cahill. I know, says your man. Says John, says to me, no, he's not, I couldn't be. God, we went down to a cafe to get a cup of tea a few hours after, and he was only Louis Cahill, a lad from my own town. So we got talking to him, we had a great chat with him. So that was an experience too. He did too. I do a lot of some great characters went to England too, didn't they? Lads I knew anyway, Tom Doyle.
But did you only work out there that 4 month spell? Is that it?
That's all. Yeah.
But then you did some work in America too.
I worked in America. Done a bit of work work for her uncle, like, you know, out there. It wasn't too long there either, you know. Well, that was mostly a holiday too. We went 64, yeah.
Right, so yourself and Berna went out then?
Berna went out there. She loved travelling, she loved going places. And she had an uncle there, and he wanted us to stay in her. She'd have stayed too, but then we had one son, he stopped with a brother of hers, he stopped there when we were in America. He's just the fellas in America, his father's there. He was only a child that time.
And was this near New York or where?
It was New York, yeah. Bayonne, a place called Bayonne, New Jersey. Lovely place too. We went up to, we knew a fella, he lived here, Tom Cox. He was from Bunclody, he was a bus driver in it. And we knew him, went up to visit him another fella in Larry Nangle, Tuckahoe. With Jackson Heights, we went up to Jackson Heights. That's where Tom Cox lived. That was a lovely place to have, but it all changed. All the foreigners came into it too, like everywhere else, and had changed too. He was a grand fellow. One of the extraordinary about him too, he was in the bus depot one morning getting ready to go on the bus, and he got crushed with a bus, killed. It was terrible sad about him. Nice, very nice man, Tom Alcock. He was married to a girl from Leitrim, from the county Leitrim. Tom Alcock. Nice fella.
What was the work you were doing out there?
Well, I was only doing bits of repair for her uncle, all I done in New York, like, you know. I didn't actually go to work in New York.
Oh, you were just helping him out a bit?
Just helped him out and put on the shingles on the roof and fixed up a few things for him as well, done little bits and pieces around for him.
Now, when you talk about putting shingles on a roof,
yeah.
So this is a domestic house in New Jersey, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
in Mahon.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it'll have wooden shingles on the roof.
wooden shingles, yeah. There was strange thing was that you see, there was no trouble putting them on. You'd put them on the very same as we put on. They call them glass slackened slates here. They were like wedges, you know. They went up to a point, like, and you'd just nail them on. And there was a lot of missing of it. A lot of them had fallen off. And I repaired the roof from another word, like, you know. But it was a real warm time, all right. He was a nice man. He died. He came home. He wanted to stay at home. He came home, stopped here with us for 3 months, and he went back then, and he thought he was minded the wife to hold him because he died himself before, years before.
Tell me, I want to bring you back to Bunclody, Andy, because you talk about how much Bunclody has changed over the years. It's very different to when you were a child. So tell me about some of the big differences as far as you're concerned.
Well, the people are different. Well, naturally enough, I suppose. People are behave different. And there were some great characters that time. You see, as I was telling you, you know, you'd be there and they'd tell you stories and that. Like, well, I think that's gone anyway. And then the place had changed too. People, the houses have changed and all that kind of thing, you know.
And you talked about playing in the meadow that was there. And was there something about a metal bridge? What was that?
The metal bridge, that was a shortcut from Haller's estate across to the other side, you know, across the Slaney. And I remember that was there till 1947. There was a big fall of snow. You might often remember that. And when the snow melted and a lot of rain came, it pushed down trees. There was a wooded area above that, and the trees always fell into the Slaney, and they were all washed down. They pushed the bridge over. You know, it was a metal bridge, and they knocked down the bridge. That ended the metal bridge. But
and it was never replaced, was it?
Never replaced. The stands are all there each side, but they never. But they're talking. I heard someone saying they're going to replace it now. They get up to Haller's house, like it's on the way up. Well, I suppose we're fairly direct now from the new golf links, the Sin. We ever in the golf links?
Yes.
From there, you come down to the Slaney there from that, and just across you're into the Bridge Meadow. Then that's what they used to call it. And there's a way then you could drive up to Haller's house from there, across the metal bridge. Oh, it was a good sound bridge, but that was an awful storm that time, you see, with the fact that the snow melting and the rain and all had pushed the bridge out of it, you know.
Was that the big snowfall of 1947?
47, yeah, that time when it thawed.
Yeah. What are your memories of that snowfall?
Oh, it was a tough time. It lasted a long time. I think it came around March, and it was a bad. The snow stayed a long time. Oh, we had just maybe bigger falls of snow since, but it lasted a long time. It got hard on the ground. People weren't well equipped for it that time. You know, they hadn't. You hadn't Wellingtons or good boots and like they have now. So it stayed there a long time, and when it's all washed away, then it done a lot of damage. You know. And
what was the village like during that? Was it like almost impassable? Was it with the snow?
It was parts of it. Very slippy. A lot. Probably see. That time there wasn't very many cars. There was horses and cars. The horses found it very hard to get around. And the milk car, the milk was delivered around the town with a horse and car, pony and car, and they found it hard to get around. And that went down as one of the worst years of all as regards snow. And then I think it was the year after or the year before, there was a great summer. It was 3 months of summer. And when we walked over in a place in Clenogan, near Clennigall, and there was nearly 3 months of fine weather. And we used to laugh at it because we used to walk away till dinner time, and before dinner we'd go down to the Slaney and take off our clothes and get in and wash ourselves and dry ourselves with our shirt and come back then and walk away again then.
It was that hot, was it?
It was that hot, yeah. That was the greatest summer I ever remember in my time.
And you were working up near Clonegall at the time?
Yeah, Clonegall.
And what were you doing?
There was a fellow, Dr. Ashmore, he was a Dublin man. He bought a house there, called it, just in Clonegall, outside Clonegall. And he bought that house and he repaired, so we re-slayed the roof. And we done a few jobs done up for him. Dr. Ashmore was his name.
And is this when you went swimming at Clonegall, did you?
That's we used to go and swim there then around dinner before we'd have our dinner. Because it was a very dirty job, like, you know. And we had a fellow with us, Joe Connors, and he didn't like the idea of going into swimming, but we got to keep on to him anyway. But he came this day for the swim, and he was swimming, and he got in this after a lot of coaxing. He washed himself and all, and we were coming back up anyway. And my brother Jim says to him, says he, God, Joe, see, that grand now, so you have to having a good wash and all. So see, I wasn't washed, you see, since the nurse one washed me. So
that was the first time he was back in the water, was it?
First time back since he was an infant. He said. But anyway, that was the way it was. That year. It was a great year. I always remember that. But I don't know what is the, I think it was the 47 or 48 summer. It was a great summer that followed that. I think it was followed that hard snow. God, that was a great summer.
Other things you would remember about Bunclody, because the church would have changed, of course, in your time.
Oh yeah, the old church over beside the convent. That was you know where the church is. The church was there before you go into the FCJ convent.
Right.
That was the church, and there was great stories told about that too. There was coming up of Bunclody, sees a bit of a hill. Coming up to the chapel, it was called the chapel. Like we had to walk, everyone walked that time. There was no such thing as motor cars. We all walked up. But there used to be great stories told about old fellas, you know, they'd be getting on years and be getting bit on the ticker, you know, and they wouldn't be able to walk too fast. And they'd stop and say, did you ever hear this one? I tell you, it's a good story. And the whole idea would be for to stop and get their breath, you know. Have an excuse to tell the story. But they call it Bunkers Hill. It's Chapel Hill, we call it, Chapel Hill. But it was a test on people getting old, and sure, there was no such thing as motor cars at that time. You had to walk or either stay at home, like, you know. But that church was demolished. Then they built it. I think that was in the 70s. They built the early 70s. They built the new church. So that was a great relief to the old people. All right.
You weren't involved in building that, no?
No, I had nothing to do with that. Patsy Foreign, I know Patsy, I like Patsy, nice fella. Gone very well with him. He built that. But a lot of people objected to the fact of demolishing the old church though, because it was a great old granite stone building, like it was a great building. And
was there any reason for destroying it, no?
So I suppose, I don't know, they had their own reasons. Maybe they'd be paying rates or something, I don't know. You don't know, it was demolished anyway. They had some reason for it. The convent was attached to it, like the FCJ convent was attached to it, you know. Mm. And the church was on the outside, on the road side of it. I always remember a story told about that too. There was a priest came down one time, came down from Dublin, came down on the bus. Sure, the bus was a big deal that time too, you know. You come down. We used to go down every evening at 8 o'clock. The bus would arrive from Dublin, stop on its way to Ross. The bus came from Dublin to New Ross and back up the next morning. But we'd go down to see the bus, see the people getting off the bus. You know, there was no motor cars, and it was great to see the people getting off the bus. And this fella, Phil Cummerton, he lived in Eyre Street. He used to make his business to go on every night to meet the bus, because he'd get someone coming off the bus, he'd carry their cases for him. He'd get sixpence or a shilling for carrying their case, but This night he was in it, waiting for the bus, and a priest came in off the bus, and Phil went over and he carried the case up to the convent, and the priest would go up along, and he says to Phil, he says, by the way, see, I forget the name of this, what's the name of this order, this convent? What's the name? I think he knew well enough, and he was trying to throw out your man. Godfather says, I can't remember rightly now, but see, I think it's the Chums of Jesus. I think it's the Chums of Jesus, is the name, but he couldn't think of the Faithful Companions of Jesus. He was a character too, Phil Cumberton.
Now, Bunclody would have been a strong market town. So would there have been regular affairs taking place?
Oh, the fair every month, yeah. The fair would be every month. We get a day off from school that day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they said there'd be sheep and cattle and pigs and everything sold.
And would you have been involved in that in any way? Or what that
Well,
was?
when we get the day off school, you see, we'd try and make it a business to see there was no... The farmer would come in with sheep, and there'd be so many different places, he'd hire lads to mind the sheep for him, like, to put them up into a corner and keep them there while...
Also, it was a chance to make some money.
And we get maybe sixpence or a shilling for minding the sheep, But there was a lot. It was a big fair. Bunclody Fair was a good sized fair that time. It was a big fair.
So would the town have come to a halt then because there were so many animals? They were all over the street, were they?
Well, they would be all over the street, but then you see there wasn't. That time it wouldn't be come to a halt because there was no traffic.
No traffic going through, yeah.
There was no motor cars, no lorries or anything that time. And there'd be no traffic at all. In fact, it used to come down the horse cars with the creel, they call them creels, and the pigs or the sheep would be in them, and they just take the horse away from the car and leave the car there with the sheep or pigs or whatever, leave them in it then, while we trying to sell them, So, it was a big day, it was the fair day.
Would the place get pretty messy?
Oh, would the people, as it went on then, an awful lot, there was terrible rows, there was arguments about people. Farmers took advantage of them, they put sheep opposite front of houses, they went along Irish Street there, and there'd be an awful state when they go to naturally enough, the sheep would have left their mark after them, and they'd be complaining about, but the way it was, the guy had arguments about, But that was the way it was. As regards to the traffic, though, that time, a very odd time you see a motor car that time. Then the fair, I went along then, the fair, that ended then, the fairs. But there was great days at the fairs. There was all, to be standings, we used to call them. People come there selling things and that kind of thing, And then there's lads coming and doing tricks, acrobats, and one lad used to come there with he'd bring the wheel of a horse's car, and he'd put on his chin, how up like that, and people be looking at him doing these things, and he'd draw the crowd too. Simple things, but there was a fella used to come, and I'd just come, they used to call him the Black Doctor. He used to come with medicines, different medicines. I often see them Western films and that talking about that kind of thing, but that used to happen here. He'd sell medicines for different things, he'd tell you this was great for your stomach and all like that. They called him the Black Doctor. He had a motorbike with a sidecar, the side thing on, that's why he used to bring his stuff and all. He'd sit up there at the bottom of the mall, the main street, and he'd be shouting around, telling about the great medicines he had, the great things he had for curing this and that and that. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
And would he do good business?
Oh, he'd sell things all right. Yeah. The Black Doctor. He wasn't all a black man. He was dark. He was a bit dark looking, all right, foreign looking man, all right. We used to come around to all the fairs. That's the lads come to the fair. That was a big day, and a big day for there wasn't many hotels around, but people used to give teas and give dinners and all for the fair day. Every month, once a month,
And earlier we talked about touching on religion and not being able to eat meat on Friday. So would there have been big religious ceremonies in Bunclody during the year?
Oh, there would. There was some priests came. Some of the priests. There were a lot of different. There was a man came here one time. He was a delicate man, Father Hanton. He wouldn't be given much of a sermon because I don't think he was in good health, like, you know. But there was always a bit of sermon. Sure, to put the fear of God in place, and people, all right, you know. You know, that was different now. Well, the attendance is different too. I'd said there was Mick Hoare, that fellow was telling you about. He used to tell me a story about the crowd lads used to go to 8 o'clock mass on Sunday, and they'd stay at the back at the end of the chapel, just inside the door. And there'd be good characters, you know, but the fact of the matter was, though, each one would have a rosary bead. That would be the first thing to do when they go into the church. They count the rosary beads. So this fella, Code told me, the yarn with this fella, Peter Cummins. He lived out there in Ballinstraw. He came in one day and he went Sunday to Mass and he got his rosary beads, and there was a good few beads gone off it, these rosary beads. You know, one of the boys, Pastor Mark, told him that, God, there's a lot of beads gone off of your rosary beads. See, that's what you get to see for Linden. Do you know, there was characters already.
Did you get involved in things like the local drama society?
I'd done a few parts and played. We went to the Father Matthew Fish, as a matter of fact, one year. Didn't do that bad. We didn't do too well either because we hadn't, I don't know, we didn't do enough rehearsing or that before we went. So we made mistakes. I remember I was in the second act. It was 3-act play. I remember being in the second act. It was a kind of a Republican play, you know, and I was running the bar. I owned the bar in the second act. And they checked me on one thing. When I gave drinks to these lads, there were fellas on the run and all like that time, you know, it's supposed to be. And I'd give them the drink and all, and when they'd pay me, I'd put the money in your pocket. That was the mistake I made. I should have put it into the till. That was a slip up on my part. So things like the ketchup. I tell you who the adjudicator was, Jimmy Henry, a fellow by the name of Jimmy Henry. He was the adjudicator in the Father Matthew Fish. I don't know where it was. I forget the hall it was in now, in Dublin. But how we didn't do that well, like, you know. Called it the Social Club down there. Joe Cunningham, he was a solicitor. He was a Belfast man. He came here and he started up this. We had all sorts of games and everything down there that time, and he started this dramatic class. Oh, we went around a good bit with it. Done a lot of it.
By the sounds of it, Andy, from your very first days on Irish Street in Bunclody, it's a place you've grown up in.
That's right.
And you've loved.
Yeah, loved Irish Street. It was great, and there was great characters in it. And it was a funny. Irish Street was a street. There was nothing but craftsmen, tradesmen, all sorts of tradesmen, saddlers, shoemakers, and blacksmiths. There was 3 or 4 blacksmiths in it. Every house in it, there were tailors. It was a funny thing about it, you know. Considering now it's such a small town, it was noted for that. There was 3 or 4 tailors in it. And I tell you, I was in a basket maker, and there was a cooper in it, in Irish Street. Park Riley was a cooper, and Johnny Harris and Shores, they were basket makers. Sure, the baskets were a big thing that time too. Farmers used to use a lot of baskets for picking potatoes and different things. I got on very well with them. I liked it because there were some lovely, great old characters. You could sit down and listen to them talking, and they tell stories about old times, you know. And there were great men at describing things and telling you about football and different things, like, you know, anything that was going on.